Welcome back to the seventh grade mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the commoditization of mediocrity. We're speaking directly to this point in time that we're at now, where there has been a series of events that have led up to a welfare state that is not constricted to just the poor, everyone that is not the elite ruling class. And so there's been different things that were put into place that led to this. Beginning with the 2007-2008 financial crisis, there were systems put in place that would allow for metrics or a way of measuring assets and capital in a much more efficient way. And that started with the Global Impact Investment Network. And that was tied directly to the Paris Accord and the entire climate change debacle. And so all this information was diluted out into the news cycle about climate change, and there were all these people in fancy suits with, lots of money behind their names arguing about climate change versus global warming. Well, it turns out there was an agenda behind that, and that agenda was geared towards the eventual creation of human capital markets. Human capital markets that these wealthy elite people would then take and invest in, because the way it works is that they will continue to control all the power. And with the increasing gap between the wealthy and the poor, what keeps this new cycle working, or this new model of this old cycle working, is circulating capital. And so the way you do that is by allocating value toward the skills and education and certification that the working poor has. For example, you are a tradesperson and you are a master electrician, or you're a master welder. Well, your certifications will dictate how much you pay. This has always been the case. But now, with that same model, that master welder or that school teacher or civil servant or a programmer or someone who writes code, these people are now in this trading system that is completely unbeknownst to us, that sets how relevant or how much value or how much capital you have as a human entity, as a conduit for capital. It's a really creepy thing, but there's nodes attached to it, and there's 3 nodes. The first node is education. The second node is health. The last node is housing. And it's through each of these nodes there are metrics and methods of control. And so each of the metrics measures your level or area of expertise. With the education, for example, that system it took 15 years to build that system, but it started as after school and summer school programs that were based on computer learning. And so they had to build this model up while the other footwork was being done to solidify the other parts of these capital markets. Health being the digitization of health records, which began in the late 90s. But it didn't stop there. The free flow of health information between hospitals and your pharmaceutical information and what pharmaceuticals you're on, what you're taking, how long have you been taking them, are you someone who has a substance abuse issue, housing, where are you living, how much land do you hold, can we get you off of that land, have your homes been foreclosed on? All these types of things determine not just your credit worthiness, but your level of value in this human capital system. So these sound like sparse, unrelated things until you bring them all together. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how is this tied to the commoditization of mediocrity? Hang with us. It's all going to make sense in a little bit, but we're going to tie all these pieces together. So these human capital commodities, it's essentially about making people into serfs, all right? Serfs and feudal lords. And what we're speaking on really is this rise of technocracy that we spoke about many episodes ago. These things, they're not going away. They're in your face all the time. But what they do is they dumb it down and they give it a nice, cutesy type of name or some type of double-speak verbiage that will pass right through your bullshit filter, because most people are set up to, respond to political tweets, or they're set up to respond to police violence or somebody black getting beaten to death or shot to death.
Look, the way they get you, one of the ways they get you is by saying, like, okay, There are people who are dumber than me. There are people who are less fortunate than me. There are people who are more limited. So this is for them. And because you're so smart or you're so whatever that you're like, this has nothing to do with me, and you let it pass through your bullshit filter like he just told you. What they're doing is they're trying to set the world up to make it easier. Because not every black person can afford to have a computer at the house, and so we need to level the playing field. No, go, going back to affirmative action, it was never about leveling the playing field. No, it was about, okay, you pick these guys because they're white. You need to pick a few people because they're black. Get some diversity in there and see how that can help you. That's what it's about. The fact of the matter is, that's how they get you. They give you the idea that you're in a great place, and this is for people who are not in a great place. They're not like you. They're not as charming, as pretty, as talented, as rich, as whatever. And so when they shoot this right by you, that's not for me. They're not talking about me. The idea is to make it easier so that these commodities have more, they're worth more money. This human capital is worth more money to people. Like, okay, anybody can do this job. So out of the 25 people, we can have 17 do this job. There are metrics involved. There are measurements involved, and that's why it's important to make the world dumber. Is because then these metrics are higher. They're manipulating this invisible stock market that we don't know about. It's just like when a company fires a bunch of people and the stock price goes up. The, the stock price should be the financial health of an organization, company, or so on and so forth. But what happens is it's artificially manipulated when they do certain things. So one thing they do is if we fire a bunch of people, then all of a sudden the stock price goes up. That's not managing your company better. Now, if you're dealing with efficiency and you're becoming more efficient and you need less people to do the job, is one thing, because that's what that actually means. But when you fire a bunch as a knee-jerk reaction, then it should not positively affect your stock price. Well, that's the same thing going on with this live human capital market my brother's talking about. What Roscoe is telling you that they're manipulating something that we don't even know about. And so, since you don't know who the players are and you don't know whether it applies to you or not, you're like, that's not me. I'm too smart for that. That's all.
So there's buzzwords you should pay attention to when you're thinking in these terms or you're trying to find the corollary or something that ties these things together. Pay for success finance, social impact bonds, predictive policing. We can start with predictive policing. Predictive policing is a big problem. Bob Barr, the most recent Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, was a big proponent of pushing this through. And parts of it are making their way through into law enforcement now. You just haven't seen them take hold yet because they're setting up the framework for these new programs. And so you begin to see things that tie the police into things such as the human health situation and how a person may be liable to commit a crime. Okay, well, it's Saturday night or Friday night. This person just got their check. It's the first of the month. They got their crazy check. They got some alcohol. They got some drugs. They went and cashed their check and they got their fix. So now this person might be liable to commit a crime. Let's send a police drone to hover around that person's vicinity and do pings or searches for, spikes in volume. Now, if there's spikes in volume, while this drone flies around your residence, this person in an agitated state, is this person about to have an argument? Now, this person also has a violent history of acting out violently because they've been overprescribed for medication. So this person will be watched by police drones. And then if it's not police drones, it'll be police dogs walking through the neighborhood. Police dogs, what are you talking about? Do some research online and you see that there are robotic police dogs in Massachusetts that were used to keep people away from each other for social distancing. That is not the end of the robotic police dogs that you're going to see. You're going to see a whole lot more of Ravage. Okay? Transformer fans know what I'm talking about. But you're going to see these robotic police dogs walking through neighborhoods. And it's like a dog sniffs and sniffs in a cone, looking for different smells and pheromones. These dogs are going to have infrared vision. They're going to see through walls. They're going to have the craziest microphones in their ears to pick up the sounds through walls of concrete to hear what you're saying, to hear if you're having an argument. And so these dogs will just like maybe packs of them, they'll release them in neighborhoods and they'll just sweep neighborhoods, listening for crime, sniffing for the smell of drugs, sniffing for all different types of things metaphorically to arrest you or to send you a ticket in the mail, or to not even in the mail. It'll go to your blockchain wallet, and your blockchain wallet will be docked $50 for cursing, or $100 for a public argument with somebody. This sounds far-fetched, but it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in the future now. Your kids go to school online. They're going to graduate this year without even setting foot in a classroom. You need to understand where we are and how crime plays into that, because we're talking about crime in particular. But with this whole defund the police and all this stuff about police reform, okay, that's great. But you need to monitor that police reform and see exactly what type of reforms are being enacted. Because the problem is that some of these people that are making these decisions about law enforcement are not people that can be elected or fired. These are people that sit on boards of science and education and medicine and aerospace. These people can't be fired or hired or elected. You can't just go, well, the problem is we're just going to vote. No, these aren't things that can be solved locally or nationally by voting on these problems. So that's why we're speaking on these things. So yeah, just to paint a little murky little picture with some dark watercolors about how technology can be used to pre-crime scan you in your neighborhood and arrest you on those grounds. Just saying.
They've been working on this for a while, and the thing is that we all remember the movie with Minority Report, and we joke about this stuff because we don't want it to be the case. But the fact of the matter is, they're already doing stuff. They're basing things on your race. They're basing things on your mental health. Excuse me. They're basing things on your financial stability, and they're like, okay, chances are, if we send cops to this area, because if you don't think they've already done this, they've been doing it for years. They send police to the ghetto on the weekend because they expect you to act a fool. But here's what you need to understand: the suburbs have the same crime. They have the same amount of drug use, the same
alcoholism, spousal abuse,
and all this other stuff, spousal abuse. And so the numbers might be slightly different because people are counting it more. The problem with numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers. If they're there counting it more in the hood, they're going to have a higher number. But the fact of the matter is, we all know. We all grew up with these people from the suburbs, and they were alcoholics. They were beating their wives. They were beating their husbands. They had live-in lovers and all this other shit. So the idea that if you send a police, the reason that you have more issues in the hood is because it's more condensely populated.
There's more concentration on those problems there, and they're concentrating on those problems because they're fishing. Yes. They are fishing for the prison industrial complex. That's why. Look, it's not done to make it better.
No. Preach. What I'm saying is, you have a block in North. I'm from Omaha. You have a block in North Omaha. You have a block in La Vista. How many houses do you have in La Vista? How many people do you have on that block in North Omaha? You might have 2 apartment complexes. You might have 25 houses. So when you're more densely populated, the chances of things going wrong are much higher. It's a fact. So when they sit here and do these numbers, or they actually send police to that area, of course you're going to have more because you have more people condensed. Now, like I said, what we're talking about is the reason they're so big on mediocrity is because right now the world's getting dumber. You know, when you sit here and listen to music, the music doesn't have the voice that it used to have. Look at the movies. They had done these movies down. Whenever they make one complicated movie every 2 years, like Convergence or something like that, everybody goes nuts. Do you know why? Because they're stupid. Because that's impressive to them. That's not impressive to somebody okay, that's it. I like the concept. I like the movie. Good acting. Nah, these people never thought outside of anything else. So when they see something and blows their mind is much easily blown. That's all it is. So yeah, this mediocrity thing, this middle of the road thing is being done on purpose. Because if you're dumb, you're not going to rise up against the people who are oppressing you because you don't feel like you're being oppressed, number one. And number two, you're envious of them. You can't be envious of these people. And that's what they're doing. They're making you like, hey, I want to be just like Bill Gates. That motherfucker's despicable. But it doesn't matter because how you measure success and judge success has been given to you, and you accept those boundaries and those rules, and you apply it to somebody who, yeah, he wasn't that smart. He's not some good guy. Oh yeah, Bill and Melinda Gates, they're always giving out billions of dollars. Yes, to control you and take your land, take whatever you own. Don't fall for it.
Okay, education. Education is a major factor because with education, you can you can mold the education system to mold the population that will come through that chute, through that channel. And so if you have dumbed down education so much so that you take away cursive writing, which allows for
Independent thought.
faculties of the brain and independent thinking, then that's the first step. And then you modify the curriculum for taking away civics class. You take away the civics class, as we spoke about this before in the death of civics class on one of our earlier episodes. When you take away these things that take away critical thinking, that shows young people that they can get involved in civics in their local neighborhoods on a tangible level. When you take these things away, then you take away that possibility of that populace rising up
Participate.
and speaking out on the wrongs that are being committed against them in a way that is articulate and clear within the bounds of the law that is written. And it also takes away the probability of that citizenry creating new laws to protect themselves because they're not wise enough to see the road ahead.
But here's the other problem is that you also teach them that they don't have enough money to do anything. Oh, you got to have money. So what happens? The few and far between that do get it, they start participating. They become sellouts. Instead of them participating because, hey, we're going to have a grassroots organization where we pool our resources and we make something happen. Instead of that happening, what happens is they become sellouts. They become house niggas. They get sucked into the system so much that they're just a figurehead or they're just there to quell the minority interest. Like, hey, y'all calm down, niggas. Don't do that. Or, hey, y'all women over there, that's not a good idea. And so you're breeding sellouts too. You're creating a, a buffer of sellouts that protects the ruling class from ever having any opposition.
Yes, yes, indeed. But also with that education process, you see it manifest in other ways. And with this new digital learning school process, you see things that can be easily shoehorned with a Pokemon Go type of dumbed down learning process. Whereas there's the game on top, and then underneath there's another game that's on top of another game. So here you have these programs that are being created for these kids who can't sit still, who find it hard to learn, who find it hard to focus because the food that they are eating is null and void of nutrients. And they're not eating a stable diet or even a breakfast in the morning to help them focus because there's issues at home, because there's mental issues with the parent, because maybe the parent is over medicated. So then you have this child that is like a salmon just trying to swim upstream against this incredibly strong tide. So this whole Pokemon Go game that was out a couple years ago, it drew upon several things. It allowed this company that created it to gather big data of where this person would go, where these people could be guided, and how willing they would be to participate. It also opened the door for people to pedophiles to exploit this system as well. So there's always holes in the system that these pedos are always looking for to utilize. But this education system, by dumbing it down further, the great danger of this is that you are creating American servants for foreign overlords. And nobody is thinking about this. Let's take it a step further. Entertainment. What is America known for around the world now? It used to be cars, it used to be electronics, it used to be a lot of different things. Now, there's only two things: military might and entertainment. That's a
Period.
sad combination. It really is. There's no brain trust there. So
I remember one of my homegirls went to Africa, and this is years ago. And they kept, I want to say she was in Nigeria. Please forgive me if I'm in the wrong country. They kept asking, "Do you know Biggie? You're from New York. Do you know Biggie?" All they, everywhere she went, they asked, "Do you know Biggie Smalls?" She's like, "That nigga been dead for 3 years." But the whole thing was, this is years ago, and that tells you that there's nothing coming out of one. Rebellion is important. It's important for us to give these messages, but that tells you that they're listening to our music. They're listening to our culture. The world gobbles up our culture, black, white, or indifferent. And so we got to be careful about what we send out there. Number one. Number two, it also tells you that if we ever needed to gain strength, we can go someplace else, gain strength, and come back. And but we don't have a world view. We have a very localized view, and that's done on purpose. If you knew that the rest of the world looked up to you the way it does, I remember one African said, like, "You guys don't know that power you got." Again, I remember I met the dude at Walmart. He's like, "Y'all, you guys are called African Americans. Where else in the world do they stick African? Even Africans ain't called Africans. They're called all kinds of other shit." He said, "Y'all have that much power to where you force the white people to acknowledge your heritage. That doesn't work anyplace else in the world, and you guys don't realize the power you got." So that tells us that yeah, this dumbing down is on purpose. This dumbing down is on so many levels. It stops you from ever gaining any strength or momentum to come at the ruling class. But the funny thing is, these companies that are corrupting our government, they do it all the time. Why do you think China gets away with all the shit it gets away with? It's not because China's super smart. They are smart and they are playing the long game. But every company, NBA, we've always talked about every company, um, Marvel Entertainment, they want to be in the Chinese market because Chinese market has a lot of people. They don't have a lot of income, but when you got 4 billion people with $5, that's billions of dollars. So that's what they're shooting for. They know that market right there is a huge market. So when they do these human rights violations, when they kill their own people, when they herd these Muslims into concentration camps, when they herd these Christians into concentration camps, oh, every company turns a blind eye to that shit. And then like when the NBA gets over there, you got somebody like Kerr, the coach for the Golden State Warriors, like, "Hey man, China ain't some good place." They're like, "Shh, hey, chill with that, son." Because we want to get our product over there because that product will make a lot of money over there. Um, uh, me and my brother Roscoe, we've been reading Marvel comics for years. So when Iron Man 3 came out and we knew about the Mandarin was supposed to be in it, why do you think they had Kingsley, a white man, play the Mandarin? Because Chinese people, the Chinese government won't let a movie come over there where there's a Chinese villain. Literally, that. And I'm like, well, shit. What the hell? How are you letting these people dictate our shit? But that's easy because all they care about is the money. They don't care about the outcome. They don't care about what happens. And so this is a huge thing when you let other people influence you over here. It's not cool. At the same token, if we wanted to, as a movement, as Black Lives Matter, which I don't like the organization, but I'm saying as a movement, if we went someplace else, gathered strength and came back, if we went to some of these small island nations where we know the white man's been oppressing these people for years. We know Jamaica. We know Haiti. We know Haiti has paid billions of dollars in restitution to France. Why don't we go over there and get some strength with some black folks and come back to America like, hey, I got a whole country behind me. That's what these companies do. Um, for instance, one of the number one cars in China is Buick. We thought the Buick brand would be gone. No, Buick is used in China. They love Buick over there. On the same token, like Mazda's big in Israel. So what these companies do, they go someplace where they can be the only show in town, and they gather strength and they gather this and they bring it back to America, or they bring it back. Hey, this product was huge over here, or this product is big over there, or so they don't want you to know about this. They don't want you to do that. They don't want you to ever venture outside of your box. And like, oh, wait a minute, we want you to watch a movie. We don't want you to make a movie. Or if you make a movie and it's too good, they'll buy it from you right away. So you'll never ever like, oh, we'll give you $100,000 for this. This is a good idea, but and they'll shelf it. They'll take your idea and shelf it just so you won't ever get any momentum. This shit is huge and it's done on purpose. And this is why education. The two biggest pillars for racism, and the reason we talk about racism is because we're people of color. The two biggest pillars for racism were the education system and the judicial system. Now, I read this book in high school. I can't remember the name of the book, but the guy was like a police chief from like San Diego. And what people don't, the reason we always use racism is these isms is not because it's about race. We're trying to let you know that these are the kind of games that this establishment has been perfecting for years. White supremacy has perfected this. Now these people in power are white supremacists, maybe not, but they know the games to play on people to get people to act right and fall in line and give up their rights because of one person gets shot in the mall. All of a sudden, yeah, black people need gun control. They play that game, and the media is a big part of it because they only show the side of it that they want you to see. So when they do this shit, then these half-ass smart people, because people are more worried about sounding smart than being smart. That's the biggest thing I deal with, especially with liberals. These liberals, you need to wear a mask. I'm like, hey, bro, they've already proved that vitamin D, that most of these people who were dying from it were from intubation when they stuck the goddamn breathing tube down their throat, or they were vitamin D deficient. And so when you try to explain that to them, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, wait a minute. Because I disagree with you. Whatever happened to disagreeing with somebody and respecting their view, like, hey,
or a healthy discourse.
It don't exist no more. Because if you don't agree with me, then Roscoe, you're a fucking son of a bitch. And fuck you, and let's fight about it. Nah, you motherfuckers, because as long as we're at odds, we'll never join up and fight the bigger person. We don't have to agree on how this black thing is supposed to work. We don't agree on how this American thing is supposed to work. But the fact of the matter is we respected each other. By them eliminating the respect, they eliminate your ability to recognize that there's a valid point that this other person's making. Just because, okay, so you believe in abortion, but you don't believe in abortion, but you believe in the death penalty. How can you be able to say, what the hell? The bottom line is that they do not want us to unite. And by uniting, we can become like them. We can create our own organization. We have unions. We have LLCs. We can do all this shit. You always read these different things. They tell you, hey, black man, buy some weapons, get some land, start an LLC, and pass it on down to your children. Because at LLC, what people don't understand, these mistakes that we're making in our personal financial lives, it's much easier to make that mistake with the LLC because then it doesn't affect you in the long run. How many of these guys like our former president Trump sit here and have all these different businesses and they sell off the business and because that's how they protect themselves. Oh, I didn't pay any taxes. I'm smart. What he's saying is that, yeah, I got people that create these shell companies and I work through there and I do this through there. But whenever we try to participate in that, we're told we get arrested. That's not by accident. This is simply a way to stop you from doing what they're doing. And as black folks, we've always known about it. But now you got a whole poor class that doesn't understand that you're poor by design. You're not poor by accident. You know, this classism is not by accident.
So recently I was watching this TV show. It's called Small X. It's a show that comes on Amazon streaming service. And it's about the plight of the black Jamaican, West Indian communities in London during the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. In one episode in particular, I think it was episode number 5. And it was about a young boy. He was about maybe 11 or 12 years old. And he was actually dyslexic, or he had a reading disorder, right? And nobody invested the time and figure out what was wrong with him. So then what the British school system did locally, they took him and put him in what they call a subnormal school. Subnormal. And throughout the course of the episode, you see that this is just a holding pen for children, and many of them were black, that they did not deem worthy of committing the time and resources into making sure that they had sound fundamentals. And it was discovered, there was actually books that were like published about this. It was discovered that the blacks from Jamaica and the Caribbean, the West Indies, were not considered fit enough for education in Britain. And if there were any that made it through the education system, they were just considered exceptional. And so it was also, in their own words, the British school system said that the blacks who were uneducated could get some type of trade, and if they had any offspring, they would have little to no chance of breaking through that poverty barrier due to natural selection. Yeah. So what you're looking at, it was a school system until people of color spoke up against it and made steps to change it was perfectly content with failing children who were struggling, did nothing to help them, and then moved them into a seriously remedial school when in actuality they only had slight issues.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so,
but we experienced that too, though. You know, when we were in high school, they had I can't think DRC program. We used to call it dumb retarded children, but it stands for something else. Developmental Reading Center.
yeah.
Don't
Just for the
lie.
record,
That's
neither one of us were part of that program. When he said we experienced that, no, I mean, we know people that were in that program. No. These are two shining stars of the Omaha public school system. I'll just let you know that right now. So yeah, please continue. Please continue.
But the point, what I'm saying is that this systemic racism, this systemic culling of people and putting them in these different situations has been going on for a long time. That's the point I'm trying to make. And just because they changed the name.
But so now the name is changed. And it's not only people of color now. It's not. We keep saying this, and we're going to keep saying it until it sinks in. What was done to black people is now happening to everybody. Please continue.
They practice it with us. But the big thing they thought was, okay, we don't. You see this in many documentaries, many of these black documentaries. They talk about so when they desegregated the schools, they were like, "Don't worry, we have a plan." And so you had those gifted programs. So what they thought was when they create these gifted programs, the white kids who are naturally smarter would gravitate toward the gifted programs, and the black people who were dumber, the Mexicans who were dumber, the minorities who were dumber would fall out of that. Well, it didn't go down like that. What happened when they started creating these gifted programs, more and more minorities were in the white people, so they had to change it. What they thought was this intellectual natural selection would occur, where we can have our racism, and we'll just call it something else, and then these people will cull themselves out. But what they're finding out is that black folks and white folks are just equally smart. There are people with disorders and et cetera, et cetera. So that didn't work. But yeah, but these gifted exceptional programs, I remember having it in grade school, and we remember certain people, but it was not based, those guidelines were not based on race, and that killed their whole theory, so they had to come up with something else. So then you have the poverty, and then they had busing. So whatever guise that this racism falls in, it ends up eating itself, devouring itself, because, this is what happens. It just naturally happens. It doesn't go down the way you think it is, or the people that you think will excel don't excel. So that tells you, so whenever they tell you this racism is unfounded, or that this belief that this person is better based on this, it shoots itself in the foot damn near every time.
So, I mean, continuing on with education, there was always schools you didn't want to go to. There were always schools where you felt like, man, if I go there, I'm going to get dumber. And when you look at it as an adult, it's easy to understand why, because the resources weren't being applied to that sector. They weren't putting enough money into that school to turn that curriculum around. If anything, they were catering to dumbing down these kids. I've always had that view, and I think it's still the same now, more so with schools becoming digitized, and the classroom is now virtual. But I want to shift this conversation into entertainment, because people now are commoditizing themselves, whether they have talent or not, whether they have anything to offer. They are finding ways to show feet, a booty cheek, a dance move, any ridiculous little thing they can think of to make money off of it. People out there are getting that bread, and you got to wonder, okay, what does this say about the future if nobody is developing any long-term skills? If everybody is so focused on the thought of the week or the thought of the moment, and dude, this whole OnlyFans thing is the biggest simping simp thing I've ever seen in my life, dude. Like, simping. Straight simp. Like, hold up. You paying this money and you ain't seeing You ain't get you just you paying all this money for basically just like an expensive nudie magazine. Are you serious?
And you might not see shit. Hold it. There are people out there. There are famous people with OnlyFans. Who? Oh my God! Oh, girl from Players Club. The Brat's sister. She has OnlyFans, right? And she's famous. I'm not doing nothing naked. So people join her OnlyFans and they're pissed because she ain't showing no skin. She's like, I'm a grown woman. And you have celebrities who think OnlyFans is just like, okay, just this is a way to meet their fans. No, OnlyFans is for broke motherfuckers that want to show some tits and ass and get paid for it. That's all it is. And so when a celebrity does it, they even say Chris Brown has one. But of course, he's like, I ain't showing nothing. I'm not showing nothing. I'm famous. You watch me ride a motorcycle, motherfucker. And so I what's going on is that they're making it so that prostitution is cool, which for the record, they ain't selling no pussy. But they show people
I
way
don't
too
know. I
comfortable.
don't know. You don't know. You don't know what go down in the
Hold,
DMs.
hold it. We don't know every situation 100%, 100%. But what I'm saying is
Because they show some
that
on Instagram. Them Instagram models are selling it.
yeah, we know they are.
Because hey,
We
come
know
on,
they
a
are.
plane ticket to Dubai, you already know that end up with spreading the legs. Come on now.
And you better hope you come back alive. How
Right.
about that?
Right.
You better hope they let you live. See, that wasn't good. But the point we're trying to make is that we worship this thing makes us worship celebrity. This beast, you worship celebrity more than you worship intellectualism, and intellectualism does not always mean going to college. You have people out there. We always refer to Dr. Sebi, which a lot of people don't know about. Dr. Sebi was curing people without a college degree. So there's a practical application to this knowledge. If you're educated, you're intelligent. That does not make you smart. Smart is the application of that. If you can apply what you learn, you don't need a degree. And what happens is these people can't apply shit. If they get sucked into this bullshit, and you can't apply knowledge. You can't do anything with it. And it's a hustle, and you get sucked into that. But you believe because this guy is on TV or this woman is on TV or they have their own reality show that they're smarter or better than you, and that's not the case. You believe because this guy has a bunch of degrees and certifications. I know guys that got 2 or 3 master's degrees because they couldn't exist outside of this education system. Education system is easier than reality. It's a
Yes,
reality
it
show.
is.
And so, if you can't apply knowledge, if you get these degrees and you can't use it to raise your children, if you can't use it to make money, if you can't,
You
and when I
can't
say make
eat
money, I
off
don't
that
mean jump
degree.
back in. Yeah, I don't mean jump back into the education system like, hey, I'll be a professor because I can't do shit else. You know, that's when we say they're rewarding mediocrity. That's what they're doing. And then you look up like here's one of the issues we always talk about with the liberals and the Dems. Barack went to Yale. Barack went to Harvard. Okay, because all it takes to get into Harvard is money. It does not take education. They're not looking back in the day that might have meant something education wise. But now we all know that if you have the right high school and you got the right last name and you got the right amount of money, that you can go to those places. It's not like it was. And so with that being the case, we don't get suckered or impressed by bullshit. You know, I'm dealing with some shit at work right now, and I'm like, you guys are arguing over who fart smells the better. Stop tripping on these minor details when this is the real issue. And they get mad at you when you bring it to their attention. That's what it is. People get pissed when you bring the truth to their attention because they had already made up how they were going to come at you or say or live or whatever. I'm like, that's kind of dumb. Are you calling me dumb? No, I'm pointing out that what you did was dumb. I'm not saying you're a dumb person. All the
But if
while,
you keep doing dumb shit, you're dumb.
look, you know my analogy. Look, if you do 10 things and 7 of the things you do are dumb, then maybe you're a dumb person. But if you're a smart person and you do 9 smart things and 1 dumb thing, that doesn't make you dumb. But the amount of dumb shit you do at some point in time, we gotta quantitate this and say like, hey, nigga, you ain't smart because the shit you doing is dumb as fuck. It's dangerous as fuck. You keep doing the same shit. You keep dating the same motherfucker. Like when you'll see these stories. She was a single mother raising 4 children on her own. You mean to tell me why the fuck you keep fucking different niggas? You get the same person every time. You can't keep doing the same shit expecting a different outcome. Stop doing that shit. What you're doing is like I'm gonna keep bumping my head against the wall until you give me what I want based on my own behavior. It's not based on your success or your recognizing the situation is unhealthy. Fuck that shit. So what we're saying is this mediocrity thing is on purpose. They want you to be mediocre. They want you to be dumb because it lowers the playing field, and then you'll never approach them
But
and try to take what
really
they
ask
got.
yourself, what do you have to offer? Because if some type of major calamity were to befall the planet Earth and they had to send out an ark ship of the best and the brightest humans, none of those
You'll be on
YouTube
that ship.
people are going to be on there. None of them Instagram models are going to be in. None of them OnlyFans people are going to be on there. You understand? It's going to be a bunch of foreigners that are smart as shit and about two Americans that are really smart as shit. And everybody's going to wonder, well, how come all these foreigners are on there? Because, dummy, you spent all your time navel gazing. You spent all this
You're trying to
time
get liked.
with a bunch of nonsense that didn't matter. Exporting garbage. That's it. Exporting garbage for your lords, your foreign lords,
Handler.
the technocratic lords, your overlords. People are cranking out jestertainment. That's what they're doing. It's jestertainment. They're doing all this nonsense, and you look like a court jester or some slave girl, and that's tied to like Jabba the Hutt, at his little like platform there in the desert. So I'm saying all this.
People,
Go ahead, go ahead. No. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just
you
saying.
say it.
I'm saying all
Preach.
this. I'm saying all this to say that this waste of time, this huge waste of time of human potential, is something that we are starting to pay for, and your children pay for, and your
Yeah.
grandchildren will pay for. Your grandchildren will pay for this, for your fucking around. Fuck around and find out. Okay? And that applies to this situation. Seriously. But the entertainment,
Hold it.
go
Hold
ahead.
it. Don't leave that. What my brother is saying, and we made this example several times. I'm making it again. Back in my day, to have a TV show, to the Richard Pryor show, you had to be skilled or funny, deep talent, this. But the Kardashians had a show for like 15 fucking seasons, and what were they good at? They were good at making money. They were good at manipulating dumb people because they were dumb, and they recognized, hey, I'm dumb, but I got a market out there. So
But this mediocrity is
when,
being allowed, and it's being allowed because
yes,
it's the narrative
they're
that has
giving
been
the
chosen. This chosen narrative is being driven to drive people off a ledge, to drive humanity off a ledge. Why? Because these people are sick and twisted, and some of these people want to bring about the apocalypse. But they're doing it in a
purpose
way
on
that
purpose.
you don't recognize because they're using coded words. They're using doublespeak. They're using this like this sing-songy commercial that has a banjo playing and whistling. You just look right past all that, and you don't see they're selling you drugs that will kill you. They're selling you a system that's
This jingle.
going to enslave you. All they got to do is make a nice little catchy jingle or a song that sounds cutesy pie, or you see a bunch of children. You hear some like some plush story or some puff piece where there's like a bunch of high school children who volunteered on the weekends to build tiny homes that are being used for low income families and the homeless. But these tiny homes are perfect for sheeple. These tiny homes are gaining so much momentum because they're these cutesy pie little like bungalows that people can buy the materials and build a home and have a roof over their head and not have to worry about neighbors.
Hey,
But
Roscoe,
wait. Hold on.
you
I'm
leave
going somewhere. I'm
no,
going
don't
somewhere.
leave
Hold
the
on.
part. No, I
Wait,
know.
wait.
You
But
leave the
here's the
part of it
thing.
out.
Here's the thing. What you're not paying attention to is the Internet of Things. And once that person sets foot at their front door, they're going to pass 60 plus sensors inside that home that measures
Mm,
everything
mm.
about what they're doing. So yeah, that's a great puff piece about how high school kids did a great thing for the humankind and humanity. Those kids didn't know they're a bunch of fucking Trojan horses. And they were just like doing the bidding of some
Yes.
multinational corporation, Davos, Peter Thiel, who want to control human capital and trade it on markets. But see, it sounds real
But that's how they
sadistic.
get you though.
And hold on, it sounds
That's how they
sadistic,
get you.
but all they're going to do is dress it up in things that you don't take the time to discover. Go ahead, bro.
No, no, no. Well, all I was saying is that's how they get you. These tiny homes are better for the environment. They have a smaller carbon footprint. Don't you want a small carbon footprint? I'm like, yeah, I want a small footprint. No, nigga, you don't. They're telling you this shit to suck you in because then you'll agree to it. You'll agree to doing something that's actually in the long run negative. And when I say negative, don't get me wrong. Yeah, people fucking up the environment is a big deal, and I do care about the environment, but I also care about humanity. In the fact that the way this shit is set up in America, you have the ability to excel and take and become bigger and create things and get buy land for your family so they can live there and shit like that. You can do that, but if you sit here and relinquish your power, um, you know, we talked about this in other episodes. I'm like, look, you got to be careful about this whole African American word. My ancestors are from Africa, but a lot of us were already here. A lot of our people are Native American, and you don't believe that because they tell you these Native Americans are supposed to be Asian, but then look at the numbers and look at the DNA and look at all this other shit. So be careful. Don't relinquish your land by using a term that they want you to use. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of us are entitled to shit that's right here under our feet. Oh, well, but if I live in a tiny house, I won't have a big carbon footprint, and I've just given away my land. I've given away my oil rights. I've given away my gold rights. I've given away my silver, copper, and iron rights. I've given away all my rights just because I used the wrong name. Be careful. It's a hustle. And they want you to eliminate. They don't want the little man to fuck with the big man. So they fuck the shit up on purpose. This is not an accident. But if you make it fashionable, because we all
There you
know
go.
fashion
There
and
you
function
go.
ain't the
There
same.
you go. You make it fashionable.
Fashion,
Exactly. So what you do
yeah,
is you build these condos in downtown. You give it a sleek architectural look. You charge out the
thank you.
nose for not even a penthouse, just a house. I mean, a apartment on the 12th floor. Okay, with a halfway decent, okay kind of view, and then you charge all this much, and you crank up the hype machine, and you have people thinking that they need to live here in this place. When you
Live
don't
this
really,
way,
but
yeah.
you don't understand that you get more for your money the further out you go. That you don't realize that in in giving up all your hard-earned money to pay a mortgage for a house you or an apartment you can barely afford in a box that is inside of a city that history has showed us when these cities collapse during great events of calamity or great disasters, you're stuck. You have
Depression,
nowhere to
yeah.
go. So here you are in this expensive ass box with nowhere to go, and a natural disaster has happened, and you can't get food because you didn't learn how to
You
start a
can't raise
garden.
chickens. Yeah, you can't raise chickens. You don't have a place for a garden. You don't. But it's fashionable, and you want to be sexy, and you want to have a glimpse of a celebrity or some shit. That's what you're buying is a glimpse of celebrity. You're buying. I might live next to Little Wayne. I might get a glimpse of somebody else. And when you
But see,
don't
but you're
recognize that,
getting a glimpse of a person that is committed to selling you a bill of goods. You're
a
you're
dream,
you're,
it was
you're
all a dream.
these people who talk all this hard gangster shit don't even put their kids in public schools, don't even live in these neighborhoods anymore. But you will swear that everything they say is the gospel, and yet you fall for it hook, line, and sinker. And the problem is that these people are invested are invested in keeping this narrative going. And they're
Mm.
gonna do it on the most flashiest, catchiest beat, the catchiest little hook that you'll be whistling that tune while they're whistling all the way to the bank. While they're whistling while they
Listen,
drive to their country estate. While
and
you
you
are
humming that tune going to hell. You
and you
going
are
to hell.
sweating
Your kids going
before
to
you
hell.
get to hell, you're gonna be sweating in that 12th floor apartment with no air conditioning as the water is rising on the ground floor from the flood. and you can't get downstairs to get free to get out because you don't have a boat now. So what are you gonna do? Swim? Can't swim. You didn't take the time to learn how to do that. You know. So what you gonna do now? You ain't got no food because you didn't take the time to think about. Well, maybe I should put away at least 3 weeks worth of food just for something like this. Or maybe I should have a generator just so I can have some power to charge up my communication devices. But I know I have to have my lights off or I have my windows boarded up to prevent the vandals or pirates from coming by and busting in and taking all my stuff. You're not
But
thinking
see,
about this.
here's the whole thing. By making people mediocre, by making people desire things they really don't need. Let's just talk about food, for instance, like Coca-Cola. That's not real food. You should be drinking Coke once or twice a week, but we drink Coke at every meal because we see the advertisement. This is the problem with that situation. You are desiring things that have no nutritional value. And when I say nutrition, I ain't just talking about food. I'm talking about mental nutrition. I'm talking about a soul nutrition. I'm talking about family nutrition. So when you desire these things that tear down the things that would actually make you stronger, you are falling into this landscape of this trap, this huge elaborate trap that people are fucking with you about. So what I'm trying to tell you, what we're saying is that mediocrity, we grew up reading books and watching TV shows and movies and hearing stories about people who did great things, that they came from humble beginnings, but they persevered. But now it's just the opposite. All you want to hear about is mediocre, mediocre, mediocre. Like anybody can get a rap contract now. Everybody raps. I remember when they interviewed the Jizz and the RZA one time. They said, "Yeah, y'all need to stay on music." I'm like, "Y'all some hating motherfuckers." No, they're telling you it eats you up. A lot of y'all niggas don't really have enough talent, and when you don't have talent, the record company could use you even more. And when you do have talent, they abuse you by taking the rights to all your shit because you starving. So when you really find out what they're really saying, when you become like sometimes you ain't old enough to understand shit. I wasn't ready for that message. You know, I talked to somebody about the whole Dr. Sebi thing when he was explaining some shit I didn't get. And I'm like, man, this motherfucker's a quack. Now I understand what he's saying and I see it in application and I get it like, oh, that's some really deep, profound shit this nigga's saying. So sometimes we ain't ready for the message. And they are taking advantage of your immaturity. They are taking advantage of your lack of knowledge because, you know, you're like, well, fuck it. Oh, one of my daughters, she hurts my feelings all the time. She's like, hey, I want to be discovered. I'm like, nah, that's not how I raised you. Why do you want to be discovered? Why can't you just create your own path, be your own star, be your own whatever? But everybody wants to be discovered, and they keep making these shows out there on purpose because they're like, hey, you're so busy trying to be discovered, then you're not establishing anything. You're not making something. You're half-ass creative, and we talked about this in a couple other episodes. Your creativity is your divinity. You know, when they say God's in all of us, that's your ability to create. That's your ability to make something from nothing. That's your ability to put things together, and the sum is greater than the whole of the goods. Because you know, I put 19 things together, but the one thing I created is such is art. It's usable. It's amazing. It's an invention. It's something that didn't exist before. That's the shit they try to steer you away from. We talked about this shit before. Copyrighting your shit, doing a patent, trademarking. You know, that sounds like right now you think you need a lawyer to do that shit. Man, if you go to trademark.gov or copyright.patent.gov, you can do that shit on your own for 30, 40 bucks. Patent is more expensive. It's like 700 bucks. But trust me, if you have a patent for something, that's yours forever. But we steer clear of that shit because we think that we have to go through somebody like a lawyer. Lawyers are designed to fuck you. Unless that lawyer is your family member, you trust that motherfucker. And if they family member, you don't trust that motherfucker. But unless you have a lawyer that's really down for you and cares about you, that's a pipe dream. They will fuck you. So get back what they're making you mediocre on purpose because then you're not a threat to them in their location, their place. You fuck this mediocrity shit, nigga. Fuck that shit. Let that go.
So we can take this intellectual welfare conversation a little bit further into
Mm,
money and
mm.
speak on token economics, where token economics can be described as a way of rewarding people gifts or money based on a service or performance, but it's delivered in the form of something digital. So these tokens can be used, of course, to be spent as money, but they're credits. And so
Yep.
This established idea comes from the world of video games. And so here you are in this smack dab in
That's
this
crazy.
world of people who are marching lockstep towards AR, augmented reality, and VR, virtual reality. And inside this world, they're creating another world. And they're using these tokens or this digital currency to pay for the things that they want inside that realm. That's starting to bleed out into our everyday lives, into our reality now. And so this carrot dangling mentality is being bred into the younger generations now, and it's very dangerous because these younger people who are used to this, augmented reality, virtual reality, gaming universe, they may not realize that one day when they're
It's
fighting for
bleeding
their
over into
rights,
reality.
when they're fighting for their rights, or they're fighting to keep their homestead, they're doing so against a corporation which has now been given the rights of a person. But that corporation now is manifesting in the form of what is called a decentralized autonomous organization. That is a fancy way of saying an AI corporation. So, just let that sink in for a second. A corporation has the rights of a person. A decentralized autonomous organization can be a or a collection of AI beings. Right. So,
Hmm.
these are things to munch on to think about because these are the fights of the future. These are the future battles. This is where we're going. This is what we're headed to. This is what your children and your grandchildren will be fighting. But you have to be mindful and vigilant to arm yourself with the correct information and the way to think about these things critically. Let's bring back critical thinking. Let's bring back a type of thinking that allows you to just cut right through the bullshit and see when you're being played. Because
The
that
reason
is
critical
happening.
thinking was eliminated is because people don't like bad news anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If you say no to somebody nowadays, that's an insult. Like, hey, no, that's not a good idea. Well, fuck you, motherfucker. What it is, critical thinking sometimes means the answer is no. Sometimes it means that if you put your mind to it, you recognize that this is not healthy, this is not safe, this is not going to go anywhere, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, people don't want to hear no anymore. And nowadays, or oh, you know what, they didn't like my music, but I made it anyway. The reason you made it is because you ain't saying shit, and those handlers want a motherfucker like you out there. That's why you made it. They're making fun of you. You should be insulted that these motherfuckers gave you the contract they gave you. You should be insulted by that because you knew your shit wasn't no good. You knew you was garbage.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, I mean no, that's true, but that's true. But this mediocrity, it's not just in music. Part of it comes from this nanny state that we now live in, where everybody gets a participation award. And
Mm-hmm.
that is dangerous because it's coddling of American people. It creates losers. And yeah, I'll say it. There are winners and there are losers. It creates losers, man, because it creates people without fighting spirit. That's the type of loser I'm talking about. You have no
They can't
moxie.
persevere.
You have
Mm-hmm.
no moxie. You
Yep.
have no fighting spirit. And you need that to win wars. Straight up. I mean, at the end of the day, you need fighting spirit to win wars and protect yourself and your family and your loved ones. So you got to arm yourself. And there's so many things out there that you can go and you can look at regarding this. But if I was to point you in several directions, I would say, and just go look up some of these terms. Go look up some of the things like the autonomous, excuse me, I lost my place. Let me bring it back. Hang on, bro. Yeah. So, I mean, you can look up things like token economics or intellectual welfare or decentralized autonomous organizations. You can look at these things and you can see like where are these originating, or look up the learning ecosystems, which started in Cincinnati at a company called Knowledge Works. That was built up over the last 15 years, and that's how we got this digital virtual learning system that we have now. Look into things like that. Look into, where the human capital market is going and what that's all about. Look into predictive policing or social impact bonds or pay for success financing. Or better yet, do some deep diving into what is actually going on at the Institute of New Economic Thinking that is being run by George Soros. Look into that, and you'll find some things that are actually quite disturbing. But we're going to wrap it up here and just let you folks know that you fuck around and find out. You keep breeding these mediocre children and rewarding them for doing nothing at all. That's what you're going to wind up with, is nothing at all.
Look, we grew up where, like, if you knew your kid was slow, you knew to apply a little pressure and make them an adult. Stop raising children, start raising adults. I'll holler at you.
We out. Peace.